So basically, let me tell you exactly what happened. I couldn't really explain it well because I was still in a little bit of shock and I didn't feel too comfortable on the street. So, as I mentioned, I was going to a nearby event and I figured, I wanted to make a video that day, but since I had stuff planned already, uh, I wanted to take advantage, of my short commute and make a little video. The video had nothing to do with what transpired because I had already put the phone away even like before even turning into that block. So basically, I had put the phone away because I knew that the bus stop was right midway through that block. I make a left turn into that block. Mind you, it's 5, 6 in the afternoon. Lots of people on the street, lots of traffic. It's rush hour traffic time. Lots of people getting out of work. The buses are all full, everything. So I make it to the bus stop, and there's two gentlemen. There's two bus stops next to each other. They're right directly in the first bus stop on a one-way street, and I go to the second bus stop, which was mine. There was no one underneath that one, but they're right next to each other, the bus stops. And I'm look at the sign, and I stand directly under my bus stop, waiting for the bus to arrive. And the gentleman immediately looks at me, and he tells me, "Hey, you police? You police?" in Spanish. This is all in Spanish. And I told him, with very few words, I'm like, "No, bro." I'm like, "I'm waiting for the bus." And then he just starts hollering like a little bothered, not with me, but saying that the police had just detained him, that the police had him, they were searching him while he was saying this happened recently, like within the last half an hour, 1 hour. He didn't go into details, but he just said the police had detained him and they were he was embarrassed because everybody was looking at him while they searched him. He kept repeating, that he had just gotten out of work, that he was working all day, that he works as a dishwasher in a restaurant, that they had no right to do that. And I was like, man, yeah, that's fucked up. That's fucked up. I was trying to, he was a little hood. He was a little, he was probably in his 40s. He did look and smell like he was drinking all day, all night, like those people that just drank all day and night. And he didn't look homeless, but he didn't look like he had a job. So I didn't know what to take of it. So whatever. He goes on and explains that. And he's just complaining about the police the whole time and talking shit. And I guess one more time, I'm just ignoring him and just agreeing with whatever he says. He's kept his distance then. Then he gets closer and he says that again, oh, about police. I was like, no, bro. I'm like, relax, man. I'm like, I don't fuck with them either. I have nothing to do with that. I'm just trying to, I'm here waiting for the bus. And he's like, oh, does this bus go there? This goes go there? I'm like, yeah, this one goes to, I was fortunate enough to have some street knowledge of that area. And I'm like, yeah, this bus goes to Constitucion, this and that. I was near in the microcentro area and I was going in that direction, but I wasn't going to Constitucion. I was getting off nearby in San Telmo, which I could have walked. It was probably like a 20-25 minute walk, but I was a little late and I figured a bus would be a little quicker. So whatever, long story short, he complains again, he mentions that again. Mind you, he wasn't very hostile, but he was, like a little upset of what had transpired with him and the police, blah, blah, blah. So then he's already face to face. And he's like, oh, and they searched me. He's repeating the same story on and on, a few times. And he goes, oh, and they searched me, blah, blah. And he pulls it out. He's like, and they didn't find this. Before he pulls it out, he says that. He's like, they searched me and they didn't find this. And then he pulls out a gun from his hoodie. He had a hoodie. And he had, that little front pocket that you have in your hoodie where you could stick your hands to warm your hands. Well, he pulled it out of there. Briefly, put it out of there and put it back in. He didn't point it at me. He didn't tell me anything aggressive. He didn't, say he was going to rob me or nothing like that. But I mean, I discussed this with a friend and he's told me that his intentions were to rob me. And my friend has worked, in similar fields of law enforcement and stuff like that. My friend has some prior knowledge, stuff like that. And he immediately told me that the guy was trying to intimidate me, but since I stood my ground, that his intentions were to rob me. I don't know what his intentions were. You know, I didn't kind of get the read of that, but I was extremely bothered, because who wants to see that? And why are you showing me, especially after saying that I'm a police and this and that? Like, what does this has anything to do with? I did have my hat on, but I mean, I don't really think I look like a thug or like a hood, but maybe he was just trying to intimidate me or see if I had any street cred. But whatever, when he showed it to me, since we were like very close to each other, I just like, I didn't change my demeanor or anything, but I just stood up like a little more firm and looked at him like a little more firm, like, yeah, it's cool. Like I didn't flinch or nothing. And then, you know, I didn't immediately get scared, because I kicked into survival mode. When I saw that, I'm telling you, I didn't get scared. I didn't panic. I just kicked into survival mode, and I was just more attentive with everything he was saying, and especially trying to keep, you know, low key, try to keep a look at his hands at all times, at his arms. Although I didn't really think he would rob me there. There was a lot of, you know, foot traffic and stuff, but, you know, obviously he could like stick it to me. No one's going to see anything. Maybe no one notices, and walks the corner and hides, you know, within the people. So it happens. It does happen in big cities. This is not a Buenos Aires problem. This happens everywhere. Stick to the end. I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are on it. So whatever. Still waiting there. He was apparently waiting for a different bus. But when my bus arrives, you know, my bus luckily arrived within like 3 or 4 minutes of that happening, and he's still waiting there. So when my bus arrives, I get on the bus. He follows me on the bus, and he tells me, "Can you pay for my ride?" So I'm like, whatever, like, yeah, here, pa. And I pass it. I pass my card, my Sube card, for him to get on the bus. You know, he says Constitución. I pass it. So I stay. The bus was pretty packed. But if it wasn't overcrowded, you could still easily walk to the end of the bus. Because sometimes some buses are extremely packed, and as soon as you get in, you're like sardines, one next to each other. But at this exact moment, the bus was pretty, you know, there was probably no seats on the bus and some people standing, but I could still freely move to the back of the bus. But what I initially decided to do, I stayed at the front, right next to the driver. And what does this guy do? Stay at the very front, right next to the driver. Even at some points, talking to me, he kept talking to me, and he kept repeating the same crap. Oh, that the police, this and that. And then he's like, he even implemented himself. He's like, oh, I got 2 cell phones, but I didn't steal this one, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember word for word what he said, but he said, oh, I got 2 cell phones, and this and that. Oh, and that some guy... the reason the police searched him, because some guy had pointed him out. Some guy had told the police, some guy, supposedly the victim that was robbed, had told the police that he was the assailant, that he was the suspect that robbed him. That's why they searched him, and at the end, they let him go. And they didn't find a gun on him. Maybe he hid the gun before they searched him. Maybe he had an accomplice or threw it on the floor and then picked it back up. Who knows? I wasn't there to see that. But this guy was just implicating himself in crimes, because pretending to be innocent, saying he just got out of work, smelling like death, smelling like a hungover, and showing someone a gun for no reason. And then like he at one point turns to the girl that was sitting in the front of the bus in the first seat, and she's like, oh, in Spanish again, he told her, oh, you must think I'm a delinquent, this and that, you know, and she's just laughing it off because everyone was trying to avoid him. So this bus, I get on the bus, it's not moving because it's bumper to bumper traffic. So I'm just already trying to get off on the very first stop. I wasn't going to wait to make it to my place, to the place I was trying to go. But this bus isn't moving, and this guy's there, like, puts his hand on the railing, like, next to me, like, very close, face to face, still talking to me. And I was just so, that's the point where I got nervous. That's the point where a lot of stuff, you know, a lot of anxiety and a lot of thoughts were coming through my mind, because I'm like, I have to get off the bus, because this guy is just either going to end up robbing me on the bus, which I think is highly unlikely, or it's just gonna follow me out whatever bus stop I get, you know, because I was going to an area that's probably a little more secluded than the area I was in. So I was like, this guy's just gonna get off the bus when I get off the bus and rob me. I don't know. Thoughts were going through my head. So I just wanted out the bus, but it took like 5 minutes for the bus to reach a bus stop because it was just bumper to bumper traffic and the bus wasn't advancing. So I'm just there like low key, looking at the door, just looking at him, talking to him. I had to look at him and I had to talk to him the whole time because he had a gun in his pocket. So I had to make sure, you know, I had the upper hand. I had to make sure I was very alert where his hands were and what he was doing at all times. And this was extremely uncomfortable. And I'm telling you, those 4 or 5 minutes that I was on that bus with him felt like an eternity. It felt like, you know, a very dreadful, anxious, you know, it felt like a very good half hour. So fortunately, the bus advanced a little within a few minutes and it stopped for people to get up. And I didn't want to make it obvious that I was going to get out. So I just stayed there until the bus completely made a stop. And I jet through the front door since I was closer to the front door. Although you're supposed to really exit through the middle or back doors because the bus has multiple doors. But I jet through the front door, interrupting the people. There was 2 or 3 people that are already about to climb the stairs to go up the bus. And I'm like, sorry. And I just jump out of the bus. And perfectly, he didn't get out of the bus. And there, I was able to take a fresh air. That's when you see in the video that I started filming. As soon as I got off the bus, I was a little short of breath. I was a little anxious still. I was still a little nervous. I was still a little shocked. Overall, it wasn't a big life-changing event. You know, I'm a person that has unfortunately suffered many stuff, but been very fortunate to have, you know, no long-term consequences of the stuff that I have survived or seen or lived or experienced on the streets. And quite honest, when I say that United States, this and that, I've seen many guns in the United States. I've seen robberies. I've even seen shootings. I've even been robbed at gunpoint. But that's because I've lived my entire life, you know, in the United States. So I'm not saying it's a common thing. Maybe if you live there or you go as a tourist, but you eventually see a gun, you know, as a friend. One of your friends may have one. You know, you may go to a store and people have concealed weapons and sometimes you accidentally see them or you see them in vehicles. You know, I've seen quite a few guns in the United States. Been here in Argentina on and off for 4 years. And this is the first time I've ever seen a gun. And it was a little crappy, looked like a little 38, like a very small revolver type gun. But, you know, don't let that fool you. It'll still kill you. It's still very dangerous. Miami, you see more high-powered, you know, even assault rifles with magazines or bigger Glocks. You see all types of stuff, you know. I'm not a big fan of guns. You know, I'm not totally against them, but I'm not a big fan of them. But I just don't like to see him, especially in the hands of criminals. And especially in a setting like that, on the street, you know, someone a little shady, you know, and showing it to me as a stranger. Like, I don't know you, dude. Why are you showing me this? Maybe you didn't have bullets. Who knows? Who knows? You know, like, who knows? I just know it put me in a very uncomfortable situation. I wasn't in the nicest part of town. I was in between some blocks of Microcentro. It's not the nicest area. It's not the worst area, but it's not the nicest area. But it was broad daylight, 5, 6 in the afternoon. You know, rush hour time. Everyone's getting out of work, going home. Not quite sure. I know I have it documented. Not quite sure. I probably said it in a video. I mean, it's been a few days. We are on Monday now. You know, I just had a long weekend. Had a beautiful time this weekend. Not quite sure what day it was on, you know, but I did mention in the video. I do have it written down. I just don't think it makes that much of a difference for me to go and look in the video because this could happen on a weekday, on a weekend. It could happen any day. So just be safe out there. One thing I could learn about the situation, as soon as, you know, he was saying uncomfortable things, saying I was a police and this and that, I should have just walked away. Walked like another block to another bus stop, or I could have found a different way of transportation. I could have walked the whole way there, as I ended up doing, because when I got off the bus, I ended up walking the whole way to my destination. So if I would have done that before he showed me the gun, I could have avoided this, and someone could say, oh, but how would you know? Well, the guy was already acting irrational before he showed me the gun. The guy was already acting irrational, accusing me of being a police. So, me being a little hard-headed, I just stood my ground and I stood there. But, I'm unarmed, and not always, will I be able to beat someone with a gun. That situation, I felt a little confident. It would have been stupid of me to do what I was thinking of doing, but like, I don't know. I didn't think of anything. I didn't think it was a robbery or anything, but when he showed it to me, like, if he was to pull it out again, I wasn't gonna be a victim. I was gonna fight for my life. So, not saying it's the right thing to do. If someone ever pulls out a gun for you, catches you by surprise, I guess, give up. You could always buy your stuff again. But you have to protect yourself, protect your health, protect your well-being. But the only thing going through my mind after seeing that was, keep my eyes locked on it. And if he pulls it out, he ain't going to be able to pull it out. It's going to be a fight for it. So that's the only thing that was crossing through my mind. Could it be right? Could it be wrong? No, honestly, I'll say it could be wrong. What I should have left. Another thing I could have done is, after I have seen it, I could have taken off running. Like, don't be afraid to look weird, to look stupid, to look crazy, to look like a pussy, to look scared, to look like a coward. Don't be afraid. Who cares what he thinks? Who cares what anyone else thinks? Your life is very important. I honestly wish I would have done that instead of getting on the bus. Caught me by surprise. I could have acted faster. I didn't think he was getting on that same bus. But I honestly, as soon as he got on the bus and I paid, I could have gotten right off and ran. Yes, I got off at the very first stop, but those 5 minutes were very uncomfortable, and I could have avoided it all. Just like him showing me the gun was very uncomfortable, and I could have avoided that. As soon as I got to that bus stop and he told me, "Are you police?" I could have said no, and within a minute walked away and left, or started running. Because I've done similar stuff like that before. I guess I got a little confident because it was the daytime. But in the evening, in the night times, I've done that. In the evenings, if I'm walking through like a secluded block and I see two guys walking my direction, I cross the street and I walk a different direction, or I avoid them. And that's how I've been able to be in Buenos Aires. And I've been able to walk through even the worst neighborhoods. I've walked through the worst neighborhoods. Talking about in the outskirts of Buenos Aires, in the suburbs of Buenos Aires, of Zona Sur, Zona Oeste, even in Retiro, Constitución, Flores. I've walked late in the night, alone, with 2 cell phones on me, with my wallet, with everything. I've never been approached. I've never been robbed. Through 11, 2, 3 in the morning, alone. Never been robbed. Why? Because I've taken those precautions. Because when I saw someone kind of shady, maybe it was just a regular person walking home, going to work, who knows? I wasn't going to take my chances. I never let anyone get, close to me when I'm in the night. So if I see someone just chilling on that street, walking my direction, don't be afraid, don't be lazy to walk another extra block, to take off running, to do whatever you have to do. Keep yourself safe. Usually if you take off running, they're not going to chase up after you, because they're going to be, oh, this person is crazy. Usually if you don't let them get close to you, they're just going to give up, because these people are looking for an easy target. The thief mentality is looking to shock you, to catch you by surprise. If they see that you're aware, that you're alert, the chances, the times that people have gotten close to me, I make sure I look at them right in the eyes, stand up straight, look at them in their face, look at their hands. You have to be aware, you have to be alert. And that's avoided. I'm telling you, have I been in a situation? Have I put myself in dangerous situations? Unwillingly, yes, many times. I didn't go looking for danger, but I'm very outgoing, and I take public transportation. So I'm out there in the streets, I'm out and about. So have I put myself in dangers? Yes, because that's life. If you're living, You know, I don't like being hidden or stuck at home. I like going out. So have I put myself in danger? Yes. Have I avoided? Have I survived because of my street knowledge? Because of all these advice that I've given you? Exactly. But the other day I didn't take my own advice. Maybe I got a little cocky. Maybe maybe caught me by surprise and I wasn't thinking straight, you know. But I'm not very happy with the actions that I took. Although you can't blame yourself. I did the best thing I could have done. I also did take a good action. You know, what I gotten scared and stuff like that, it could have been worse. But could I have handled it better? Yes. There's always room for improvement. You know, next time someone tells me something weird or someone's a little off or shady, whether I'm right or wrong, you know, I'm not judging that person. I'm just gonna get out of there and go to another bus stop or take an Uber, take the subway, you know, or if someone follows me on the bus, I'm gonna get off that bus, you know. And this is one thing that always bothers me about Argentina. I've seen a few people get robbed, not with guns, nothing, just like a few people like get like their chain, or one person get their chain snatched, and a few people get their phone snatched, you know, unarmed, usually by teenagers. And the victims never scream. They're like in shock and they stay quiet. I'm like, you have to scream. You know, maybe you can't help yourself, but there's gonna be a good civilian, especially like me. If I see something like that take place, I'm gonna step in and help. You know, but the one or two times that I've seen that here, like the people didn't scream and I wasn't sure what happened until it was too late. You know, I wasn't sure what happened until the suspect, the assailant, was already a block or two away. But had the person screamed and yelled for help immediately, you know, I would have stepped into action, or I would have at least chased the person, you know, try and get a picture of his face, or try to scream as well, try to get more people to help, you know. But I've seen many instances where people get their stuff robbed and they're just like nonchalant about it. They're just like in shock. And I understand, you know, that it could be hard. It's something traumatic, you know, something shocking. But you have to have the courage at that moment to scream, help, ayuda, like scream. They do it all over the world. Here, I'm telling you, I've seen a few instances. But this has nothing to do with the video. So, again, I'm not talking bad about Argentina. This is my experience. I lived this. This is my life, my experience. And I've been very fortunate and very happy that it hasn't happened in 4 years. And even when it happened, the gun wasn't aimed at me and I wasn't robbed. I've been robbed in Miami, Florida. My friends have been robbed in Miami. I've been robbed in Miami, Florida once, but I've had a gun drawn on me more than once. So that'll just tell you. But it's a different monster, different beast, different world. Unfortunately, it's things that happen, you know, all over America and many other countries. But you just have to stay safe. And I still consider Buenos Aires a very safe place, especially, you know, if you take a few precautions. And if you're a person that takes Uber everywhere, you know, it's extremely safe. You're a person that uses public transportation, you know, especially during the day, it's almost extremely safe as well. You just have to, you know, there's certain areas that could be a little more dangerous than others, you know. But worst case scenario, usually if you're in like the tourist areas like Palermo, Belgrano, Recoleta, like San Telmo, stuff like that, the worst case scenario usually that might happen, if you're not paying attention, if you're being a little unsafe, like with your phone out, like a tourist, like taking pictures or taking videos, like I do sometimes. But you notice when I'm taking a video in the street, I'm like, and I'm also using, you know, I'm seeing my face at the same time, but I'm also scanning the background to see who's walking behind me. You know, I'm very alert. Not saying that it's the safest, because, you know, someone could still, a fast passing bicycle could still come and snatch the phone, you know. But if you're not doing those things, you're usually going to be very safe. If you're eating at a nice restaurant, whatever the case may be, don't put your cell phone on the table. Don't put your purse on the table. You know, it's not things that just happen here, that happens all over the world. So if you're safe, Buenos Aires is extremely safe. You just have to be careful. Do things happen? Yes, but things happen in Madrid, in Spain, in Paris, like in the best of it. In the United States, forget about it. Like we already know, the United States has, you know, a very serious gun problem and lots of violence. Could that be improved? Yes, it could be improved. But do I feel safer in Argentina? Yes. Do you have to take care of yourself? Yes. You have to be careful. But for more tips, make sure to follow my channel. I've spoken about this quite a few times in the past. This was part 2. This video is part 2. So go back and watch part 1. That way you get the full story. I went on a little too long in this video, so I'm gonna, you know, cut this video into 2 parts. So if you didn't see the first part of this video, it's when it just happened. I'm on the street, I'm filming, you know, right before this happened and right after it happened. You know, this is just me telling you the story because I couldn't really give you a clear image of what happened while I was in the street. I couldn't explain it to you, you know. So this was just me explaining it to you. So go back, I'm gonna leave that link right here. You know, when this video ends, it's gonna pop up. So just touch that. It's a much shorter video and watch part 1 of this video. But if you enjoy this content, if you enjoy learning about Buenos Aires, about Argentina, you know, I'm Leo, I'm from Miami, Florida, and I've been living here in Buenos Aires for 4 years. My channel is all about this, all about my experience, my transition, and my new life here. So make sure to follow, make sure to like, and make sure to subscribe. Really helps me grow. And last but not least, I have a YouTube channel. I have a secondary YouTube channel where I upload different content also about Argentina, as well as my Instagram and TikTok. They all have the same handle. They're all the same, at YankeeTrankee. So follow that. Take care, guys. Check out the comment section. I have a lot of info and a lot of good news there. Love you guys. Take care.